than in
Swinging on and happy, hippie, yeah. Hippie, yeah.
What's up YouTube, welcome back to Whacked Out ECIG. Today we're doing a tutorial, not a review, for a nickel build in the Velocity RDA. So without wasting any of your time, let's go do that now. Okay, so we'll get right into this. To do this build, you're going to need wire cutters, something to wrap your coil around, to wrap your wire around. I'm using a 2.5mm bit. You can use a drill bit, screwdriver, whatever. This is just a rod that came with my coil jig. You're going to need an Allen screw or an Allen key to screw down your posts and screw down your wires. You're going to need, what I am using is 28 gauge nickel for this specific build, and then cotton and a scissors. So right away I pre-cut these. This is about a foot of 28 gauge nickel and I cut it in half, so I have about two 6-inch pieces of wire. And of course you're going to need your velocity. Alright, so to start off, you're going to need to wrap your coils. I'm using this coil jig. You can use whatever you feel comfortable, but I find this is easier to maintain the spaces. So I'll try and zoom into this for you. And I'm going to do, I could probably do more than 12 wraps, but I'm going to do 12 wraps and they're going to be spaced. So let's get started. 1. Okay, so that's your first one, and then we're going to do this one more time. But now I have my two coils. I'm just going to put them back on. I could have done this before, but I didn't necessarily need to. So I'll put the coil back on the rod and just scrunch it together to maintain the spacing, but just to get it a lot less spaced, if that makes sense. So you can still tell that it's spaced, but it's not drastically spaced. And we're going to do that for both. See, that's very nicely spaced. So I can take out that rod now. Now we can install it. We can use our wire cutters now and just shorten these leads because they definitely don't need to be this long. It doesn't really matter how much you space them, but how much you cut them down. But you know, you want an okay distance on them. I'll see what works better, if zooming in will help. Okay, so I'm gonna put one in the bottom left and one in the top right, and just get them right there. As you can see, there's so much more space. I could have spaced them more, but I could have done more wraps, but 12 should be enough. And this is going to be a crucial part because nickel is very fragile, especially 28 gauge, so we're not going to want to crank this down too much or else the wire will snap. So I'm getting a little bit of resistance, and that's enough. And this is one problem I've had with the Velocity. This Allen key that came with it is slightly big for it, so it's either too big or too small, but it just gets stuck in there. And I don't know, I guess I'll have to find a smaller one or a bigger one. But so yeah, just get a little bit of resistance and kind of play with it a little, but don't do it too tight or your wire will snap. So that looks pretty good there. Now we can take our wire cutters again and cut the leads. Remember, hold your wires. Nickel isn't going to snap off as violently as Canthal, but it still will, so be cautious of that. Okay, now we'll take our other coil. one in the top right again, and one in the top left. We're going to tighten down these wires, but remember, once again, do not do it too tight. Just as soon as you get a little resistance, you're going to want to just push it a bit more, just slightly more, but not too much that it will snap it, because that is bad. And keep an eye on your coil at the same time, because you don't want it moving around too much. Luckily with this Velocity, it's super simple to just install the coils and not really have them go anywhere, but it's still something to keep an eye on. Okay, and actually with nickel, since it can be tightened down pretty easily, you can actually just twist these and they'll pop off. You don't need to use the wire cutters, but whatever you feel most comfortable doing. So now we have two space coils there, looking pretty good. We're going to want to put in some cotton. So as usual, we're gonna eyeball this, cut about that much. You can use quite a lot of cotton for nickel builds because it's not gonna suffocate your coil. You're not gonna get dry hits from it, and this just helps it wick a bit better, taking off the ends of it, because then you get the fluffiest part of the cotton, which just makes it wick easier. So yeah, I mean, we can do this twice, or we can save the cotton and cut it in half. I'm gonna do two of them. Okay, so now I have my two strands of cotton, gonna twist up one end, and this you have to be very careful with as well, because remember, the nickel is very fragile. You want to get it through there, but if you're getting too much resistance, you might want to use less cotton, because it's very easy for the nickel to just move around. You can see it kind of moving there, and that is just enough resistance that I need. We're going to do this on the other side too. Okay, now we can just cut off the bits that are maybe a bit too much, and that, yeah, I could probably cut off more, but let's just do that. Okay, now you can use a screwdriver, you can use whatever you want for this part, but I just use this Allen key that I have on hand, and I'm just gonna put the cotton, I'm gonna wrap it in, and then push it into so that it wraps around the cotton, and that's kind of the look that you're going for. You want it touching the deck so that it can wick up any of the liquid that's sitting at the bottom of the deck. Okay, so we probably should have checked the resistance first, but this mod is actually dead right now, so let me get a temp control mod and we'll check the resistance. Okay, so I've transferred this onto the ECIG 75, and it is reading at 0.07, so that should be fine. And as you can see, the coils are looking fine, everything is looking good about this. We can wick it up, we can actually fire this right now and it will not burn, which is temp control working. So let's get some liquid on here and then go back up and we will vape on it. So I hope this cord doesn't distract you too much. I have this ECIG 75 plugged into my computer because it needs charging. But yeah, that was a nickel build tutorial in the Velocity, and as you can see, it's so easy in this. I mean, I think one of the reasons I never enjoyed temp control or nickel in a dripper is because it was so difficult to get the coil right so that it vaped properly. Now with this Velocity, it's so much easier. You have a much better chance of getting a coil to perform better and look better and just vape better in general than in previous drippers. At the same time, the flavor is just not there. The vapor's there 100%. I mean, this place is cloudy. I'm not sure if you can tell, but it has been cloudy since I built this. And you know, the flavor is kind of there. I'm dripping my own juice, and it's a fruit punch, so it has a lot of different fruit flavors that you can pick up in, say, like a fused Clapton with Canthol, right? But when it comes to this nickel, it's just, I find it's muted compared to Canthol. Of course, the main advantage of doing a nickel build is that it will never burn, as long as you have a mod that does temp control properly. Another thing with this Velocity, it's a side note, I didn't mention it in the review, but you can put on the cap and you don't need to line up your airflow, because you just twist it until it clicks into place, and then it doesn't go anywhere. So that's a really good pro of this. But yeah, that's just a side note. Honestly, I enjoy this build, but it just can't compare to temp control in the tank. It just does not compare. But yeah, so never having a dry hit is definitely a pro, but I don't think that it's there yet because the flavor is just not there. It's still a cooler vape, which doesn't bother me that much, but I think that maybe adds to the lack of flavor. That it's just too cool. You're not getting those in-depth flavors. I don't know. I mean, it's a great vape that's never gonna go dry. I can show you a really long drag and see how much clouds you can get off of this thing. This is at 430 degrees Fahrenheit and 40 watts. It's a 0.07 coil that you saw in the up close, and this is what it can do. This is, I haven't dripped in a little while. And that's just one pull. I can do multiple of these. And it's gonna cloud. It's gonna dehydrate the shit out of you. But the flavor is just not there. I mean, I can taste it, but I keep repeating myself. I mean, the flavor's not there. Okay, what I will do right now for you. You just saw those clouds. I'm gonna pop on my Goblin Mini onto this. And I'm gonna bump down the power. Okay, so still at 430 degrees, but I'm gonna bump down the power to 33 watts. The clouds are denser, I guess probably because less airflow, but the clouds are denser, the flavor is much better. And this can compete with Canthol 100%. I vape this instead of Canthol in this tank. But when it comes to a dripper, especially the Velocity that you can fit crazy coils in, I would rather drop a fused Clapton, a dual fused Clapton into that bitch than a dual nickel coil. But I hope that this tutorial helped you. If you do enjoy nickel, if you just want to try it out, this is a good way to do it because it's very simple, and I hope I showed you how to do it properly. So that's about it. Don't forget to go back to the IPv3 Li video and enter the giveaway for the Sigeli 150 watt. Okay, that's going to be a great giveaway, and I think maybe at the end of this week or maybe next week, I don't know yet, I'm going to be doing the draw for who wins. It's more going to be me choosing who wins, I think, more than a random draw. I don't know yet, but thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again soon.